All right. Welcome back, you guys, to my channel. It has been a couple months since I have put out any content. And so I'm really excited to start off the new year with a good friend of mine, Shannon. And her Instagram handle is the gym nurse. So if you guys are not following her, I highly recommend giving Shannon a follow. And we met before I get into the today's topic. Shannon and I met each other at an N1 camp a couple years ago.
Yep.
And and that was really fun. And so we connected there through the love of bodybuilding and muscle and all that good stuff. And today we are going to talk about perimenopause. It seems like the last couple years it's kind of come to the surface. It feels kind of like a buzzword. And I don't know if it's because we're living through perimenopause right now, just that transition, or if it really is, I don't know. Like, so we're gonna kind of get into the perimenopause stuff. But also the thing with perimenopause is for a lot of women, it really is a roller coaster. Like it's legitimate, this transitionary period before you hit menopause. So today we're going to talk about some things like why it's important to be your own advocate, the stigma around hormone replacement therapy. Like testosterone used to be like a no-no for women. If you were on it, it was kind of like a hush hush thing. And also the importance of the big rocks, to make sure that you are hitting the big rocks with lifestyle before you just start going and blaming your hormones, because we tend to be targeted with ads about that, right? Like, oh, just take this. And it's like, well, are you even eating enough food? Things like that. So those are some of the things that we're going to talk about today. And also Shannon's own journey, because she has been very transparent in her stories over the last couple years with things that she's been experiencing, symptoms and things she's tried. Not everything has worked. And so it's like learning through experience and trying to get the education as best as you can to make those decisions for yourself. So without further ado, whatever it is, Shannon, I would love it if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself a little bit more for everybody that's watching.
Perfect. So thanks for having me on. My name is Shannon. I am 46 years old, about to be 47. I'm, trained just like you, nutrition and personal training online. But I also am a nurse and have been for over 20 years. I'm not actively in nursing right now, but still helping people in this way. And my journey with HRT started about 2 years ago, was when I was starting to really feel the decline. So I was about 44 at that time, almost 45. Um, just kind of slowly have added things along the way. It started with testosterone, and then more recently now I am on the progesterone and estrogen cream. So it's been a journey, and I still feel like, it's not 100% perfect, but it's a lot better than, you know, it has been in the past. So just kind of moving along every day and still making as needed, because it's this time of life, the hormones are just up and down and our bodies are a moving target. So just trying to find that balance where we are feeling as good as we can right now.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as you were talking. It really is a moving target of trying to figure out where that balance is of feeling good and also realizing like, okay, there is a certain element of aging where we're not going to be the way we were when we were in our 20s. So we just can't expect
Correct.
to have that experience. So going back to a couple years ago, what were some of the first symptoms that you were experiencing? Like, what did you start to notice initially?
So for me, it was just like extreme fatigue and lethargy and no motivation to. And it felt like it happened almost like overnight, where I went from having no problem doing all of the things, and then all of a sudden it was like it was the biggest chore to do anything in my life. And even the simplest things like cleaning up my house or doing laundry, all I wanted to do was like sit on the couch all the time. And that was so not like how I had been. So off the bat, I wanted to make sure like I am doing all the things that I should be doing lifestyle wise, habit wise, before I just immediately, think, oh, I need to get on all this supplementation, and had some appointments with my general practitioner, and we made sure that all of the basic general lab work was okay. Like, there wasn't iron deficiency or vitamin deficiencies that were causing this. Like, we don't want to just assume it's, you need to be on HRT. So it was a lot of blood work in the beginning to kind of just make sure everything was good. Unfortunately, and I think this is a common experience, a lot of women or their general practitioners or even their GYNs are not willing to kind of undertake this journey. It just kind of depends on the provider. And
Yeah.
so they had referred me out to see functional medicine to go forward with the more advanced like blood work because they didn't want to be responsible for if they were seeing anything abnormal on lab work. There was nothing they were going to do about it. They weren't going to assume responsibility. So they referred me out to functional medicine nurse practitioner, and that's who I've been with for the last couple of years. So she's managing it.
I think that's really cool. I don't know if I knew that because going to your general practitioner, it's not that they didn't want to help you, but they actually did want to help you by referring you out to somebody who actually had some knowledge rather than writing off your symptoms of like, okay, well, lab work is fine, so nothing's wrong with you and kind of like
Right.
gaslighting your symptoms. So,
Well, and being in the medical world, I completely understand this, as frustrating as it is, but it's like there's specialists for a reason. And, I don't think that they are trying to push you off. And I know some people are at some providers. I'm hearing from other people that they're blowing you off or saying this is normal or whatever. But, it's this and this is a big undertaking as far as monitoring you. There's lots of appointments. It's not like a set it and forget it situation. It should never be like that.
yeah.
So, it takes, I just don't think a lot of these practices have the capability of managing, every client in perimenopause to be coming into their office so routinely and need, a lot of guidance and supervision. So they referred me out. Thankfully, the practitioner I see at my office is like my age too. So she was like, this is what she was kind of the first one to be like, yeah, this is what it is. Like I had always been hearing about it on social media from some of my older, people that I follow.
Yeah.
And he's like, this is it. So I was like, okay, wow, we're here now. So
we have
welcome to
we
the
have
club, just
entered.
like what you said.
Yeah, and so with your labs, well, before we get into that, you had touched on the importance of lifestyle factors, like you're already doing the necessary things, and so the next step was looking at blood work and then also taking account into your like what your current symptoms are and putting all that together. And I think a lot of women, they're like, "Oh, I'm in my mid 40s, like perimenopause, it's probably my hormones," but they're neglecting some of those basics. And so, as us both being coaches that work with perimenopausal women's like ourselves, we are always kind of like hammering, okay, the big rocks. And so some of the big rocks like nutrition is huge, and a lot of women tend to undereat. Would you say they tend to? And
Yeah, like I felt like I had, there's always room for improvement, especially like for myself with my diet, but it was like I knew I was already strength training. I was already getting 10,000 steps a day easily. This was in the summertime. So like I was enjoying going out. I was still forcing myself to like go out and get walks, even though I didn't necessarily feel like it or want to. At that point, I was still sleeping pretty well. So I knew sleep was an issue. I was still drinking at and as of right now, I haven't drank in like 18 months, but at that time, I would only drink very sparingly. So it wasn't like an alcohol issue. So I had felt like my habits had been pretty solid all of along. Um, and thankfully for me, because of those habits, I was not experiencing really any physical changes. It was just more of how I felt. And but I could tell like, okay, if this keeps up and I'm going to be on the couch, all day long and not moving and just kind of submitting to this new lifestyle, then there's probably going to be some physical changes at some point here if I'm not making changes with my diet to reflect that. So, that, just being in this line of work and obviously wanting to feel good about myself and perform at my best, I wanted to take care of this. I didn't want to like continue on with it.
Yeah. And so, yeah, big rocks. Big rocks are huge. Sleep, eating enough, staying active, resistance training. Um, I think I
No
said,
alcohol.
yeah, no alcohol. Like that's been a big thing for you as well. You've just recently done a post about the things that you've noticed after 18 months of no alcohol in your life.
Right.
And and so share a little bit about that. I think that is relatable to a lot of women.
Yeah. So, like I said before, years ago when I first started the journey, I wouldn't say I had a problem with alcohol, but like I was regularly drinking. I was like, 3 times a week, 4 times a week, like bottle of wine, no, splitting between my husband, no problem. I wouldn't consider myself like having a problem with it, and there was no issues, between people, but it obviously like it accumulated in my body being quite overweight at that time. Like it was one of the issues as to why I was where I was and like felt the worst that I did at that time. So I knew when I wanted to make a change that I needed to significantly cut it down. I wasn't like committed to just getting rid of it fully, but I totally backed it down to like special occasions or vacations and stuff like that. And did that for a while and then, had a huge body transformation along the way because I had reduced that so much along with so many other lifestyle changes. Um, and then about, this was kind of during the time when the HRT started, I just thought like every time like even if it's one drink, we're not even talking about like getting drunk here. Like one drink was like hitting me so hard where I'd be up the whole night. I couldn't sleep. I felt like my heart was racing. My anxiety would be like through the roof. Um, and then comes the appetite changes that come when you're drinking, and um, my face would kind of swell up, and my whole and it was just like becoming this thing where it was like, why am I even doing this? Like, it's not even really enjoyable. And, not that I'm saying I needed to get buzzed or drunk, but like, I wasn't even experiencing that like kind of euphoria that people like get with alcohol. But like, I was just doing it anyway to, I guess, do it with the people I was around or whatever. But all it had was like negative implications on me. So I'm like, why am I playing this game? So I just decided to be done with it and replace that with drinking water, drinking sparkling water, Diet Cokes. Uh, Now sometimes I'll do mocktails just for like fun, but like I don't even really feel like I don't have any need to feel like I'm trying to convince other people I'm drinking or whatever. I don't care if people think I'm weird for not drinking or whatever or trying to fit in. So just drink whatever I want. And um, obviously, when you're not drinking, you're not experiencing any of those negative things. And I don't think people understand, like, when they are regularly drinking, how much of a factor that plays on how you like feel and function. Like, you just get used to feeling like crap and you kind of think that's just normal or part of it.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah, that's wild.
it's just like adding fuel to the fire when you're already in this stage of life and not feeling that great. Like,
Yeah, I can't even imagine. I have never had a drink of alcohol in my life. And so I
you're
just
not
hear these,
missing anything.
yeah, I hear these stories and I think that part of it too is because I've been hearing this from a lot of women, even some of my clients who are like, oh, I don't even want to drink alcohol anymore. I just don't find it like as socially fun before, like you were saying, because it's a lot of recovery time that's needed after
Yeah,
having some drinks. And I just know that as we get into this perimenopausal age, what I have witnessed firsthand for me is I don't really care about the opinions of others as much as I used to. Have you noticed that
right.
too? Like there used to
Yeah,
be a social pressure to some stuff, and now I'm like, maybe my brain is like fully developed now or something. I don't
I
know.
know. Because I do hear a lot of people say that in general about worrying about what other people think. And I'm like, oh, I threw all that out the door a few years ago. Like,
Yeah.
I don't care what people think about really anything in my life. It's like, take it or leave it.
Uh-huh.
So the alcohol thing definitely didn't bother me. I don't feel like I need to impress others or like explain myself or like think if they think I'm weird or whatever. But I haven't even experienced that. When you're dealing with like mature adults and friends, it's a non-issue.
Yeah, you don't even have
So
to worry about people saying, "Oh, just have a drink," or "You're no fun," and all that stuff.
right. And
Yeah.
thankfully now, with the new, I mean, this is something I have known forever working in cancer, oncology nursing. Like, it is not good for us. Like, it is very obvious it is not good for us. And now they're like putting that out to the public. And I think a lot of people didn't realize that. They thought it was like harmless. And now they're being presented with more facts and data. And it's like, okay, it's like the new smoking, should I be doing? There is no safe amount. So
Yeah.
I like the way that it's shifting a little bit. People who, never even thought about giving it up are getting rid of it. So,
Yeah. And it does have an effect because of the, like, just getting, I've said this a couple times already, but it takes longer to recover from the effects of drinking. Like your liver takes longer to metabolize and things like that as you get older. And so that is one of those big rocks, those big lifestyle factors that you can look at as you're experiencing some of these possible HRT or like downregulation type symptoms where you may want to go on HRT. And so looking at that, assessing your current status of life. I mean, you're active already and all that stuff. So it was like, okay, I'm already checking all the boxes. So we'll get back to your first time you met your functional medicine practitioner. And what did she do a little bit differently? Was there anything that did it seem pretty by the book? I know you have a medical like a medical background being a nurse, but was there anything where she was asking you questions that you were like, "Oh, this is interesting," or was it pretty by the book?
yeah, I mean, it was just very thorough. I mean, this was a couple of years ago, like very thorough as far as all, the questionnaires I went through. The lab work was extensive. It's like people will message me on Instagram and be like, well, it's like I couldn't even tell you all of the lab work. It was like so many vials of things to just like, make sure that we're covering all of the bases. And we had several appointments together, kind of with her addressing things. And I think there maybe was some little things that were off that she kind of coached me through into. My thyroid was a little bit off at that time, and um, we had figured out, or I was under a lot of stress and stuff. So just like she's very helpful in kind of guiding me before medication into how we could treat these things, maybe naturally or with supplements first, and then do we want to take the step into the medication? So, and that I think that was maybe even addressed with the testosterone when we figured out that was like low. It was like, oh, do you want to start off with the DEHA before going into some sort of top testosterone replacement? So I didn't do that because it was like I was just feeling so poorly at that point. I wanted to move on and get things going, but the other stuff like my thyroid and a lot of that just revolved around me like kind of calming down my nervous system and making sure I was like getting the proper sleep and doing all the things and getting that under control. So,
Yeah, so you're not on any thyroid medication. It was just more
right.
natural and
Yeah.
lifestyle adjustments to
Yes.
improve that. Because I do see that a lot with people is you hear a lot of women who are on like MP thyroid or they're taking liothyronine for their T3. And I often wonder if that's kind of like that should be, in my opinion, a last resort. It should be
Yeah.
looking at, because as women, we do tend to hold on to a lot more stress. We get stressed very easily. And so our nervous system can be like constantly running, you know,
On
just
fumes. Yeah.
if we
Can't
don't.
remember what was going on during that time, but it was like a very obvious. I remember something very stressful was happening, and with work, or I don't know what it was. I just felt very overwhelmed, and it was like, okay, well, we need to make sure, let's calm that situation down, and then see if this is still an issue moving forward. So, so yeah, it's been 2 years on the testosterone, and that I felt like almost immediately when I started that, which was crazy. Like the energy, just it was the change in energy for me. So um, it that seemed to work for quite a while before I was and within the last year or so, I started having the problems sleeping, and it was like nothing was helping the sleep. And then, like, after a while, I just was completely done. Like, you can only go so long where your sleep, it's like, I need some help here. So that's when we introduced the other stuff.
To help with the sleep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we get into the progesterone and the estrogen things with the testosterone, I was the same. So back in 2019, I decided to remove my IUD, and I'd been on birth control pretty much, my entire life. I think a lot of women can relate to that. I was one of those people who didn't really understand my cycle and was just like, oh, we just, we go on birth control to prevent having kids. That was like my thing. And I just will stay on it. And so when I finally removed my IUD for good, it was when my husband got his vasectomy. I was like, oh, I don't need this anymore. And I want to try to regulate my hormones and not have to worry about synthetic hormones in my body. The immediate reaction for me after removing my IUD was this like brain fog. I felt like I was bipolar. About 4 months after that, I also had this like extreme weight gain that came out of nowhere. It was just wild, like my body trying to figure out how to operate. So there was a bunch of things that I did. I was working with a practitioner at the time, but after about a year of this, and my labs were still bad. I was like, you know what? I think I've just my history of birth control must have just done it in for me, and my body can't ever regulate. It's not. I don't want to wait longer than this year time frame to see if it's going to regulate. So yeah, so that's when I started on testosterone, and I started with the cream, and it was the same for me when I started that. I was like, wow, it was like I'd been living with the lights half, like everything was kind of dim, and then everything just like bright.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh
Right.
my gosh. But I was so nervous at
Significant
the same
change
time.
for me starting that. And
Yeah.
yeah, so when did you stop your birth control? How old were you?
Okay, so 2019, I was 36,
Yeah,
I think, something like that. So,
think just when women are coming off of it at that age, when you're already kind of like entering into that time when everything's already declining, is probably more of an extreme for you to be like taken off of everything and your body being like, what is happening? Because I haven't been on birth control since I got married. So I feel like I was lucky that like during that time my body just kind of regulated back to normal,
yep.
and I didn't really have any extreme I didn't notice some big change getting off of it. But um looking back, my late 30s were like such a problem for me, like with my body and how I felt. I feel like that's probably when perimenopause like really started for me. I just had no idea that that is what it was. It was like the start of it, and
Uh-huh.
just kind of like trying to white knuckle my way through it, and adding the alcohol and all the other things to help some of these issues I was having, and all it did was just make it worse and harder on myself.
Yeah, and yeah, with all the lifestyle factors, and because
Right.
I think when we're younger, we just don't realize how important sleep is.
Yeah.
I think I just keep
It's
going
like
back
the
to sleep.
epicenter of everything.
I know. Yeah, like, oh my
It
gosh.
can
And then,
hold so much.
hmm
And I don't know, like there'll be days now, like that's the thing. Things are still not like 100% perfect for me. I still will have times where I struggle, and man, when the sleep is off, like the whole day, there's some sort of issue, like with the way you feel or your appetite or getting in steps or anything. It just everything is harder. Being able to be food around people.
yeah,
It's
and those
hard.
downstream effects. And so, um, testosterone. When you started testosterone, was that a pretty good experience? Did you seem to start at a good minimum effective dose, or was that something that you've noticed you've had to titrate and adjust around?
Yeah. So, um, I started with she did the lowest dose on me, which, looking back, I probably shouldn't have done a pellet, but like I wouldn't recommend people doing them just because, once it's in you, and like if
That's
it
right. You
doesn't,
did do a pellet first. Okay.
yeah,
Yep.
if it doesn't like work out, then it's kind of stuck in you. But um I had no negative side effects from it. The only reason why we stopped doing them altogether was because they just weren't, like, it was unpredictable as to when they were wearing off. And they were wearing off early for me because, I feel like my metabolism is pretty high, and it was just like burning through them a lot quicker. And so then you'd have these periods or weeks where like you didn't feel good because the levels were going low. So it was like we just decided, yeah, we're done. Like that's unfortunately year two unpredictable with what type of cycle you need to be on with these, and we don't want to overdose you by doing it too soon or
Yeah.
raise the dose. So we just completely axed it and went to the injection because, I honestly didn't want to have to do the injection. And even being a nurse, I was like really terrified of doing it myself. Like, I knew my husband was not going to be able to be involved with it either. Like, there's no to me. Um, and so I knew I was going to have to do it myself. And I was scared about doing that. And it turns out it's really been no big deal at all. So I didn't need to fear that. But, um, it'd be nice it can be annoying at times when you're traveling and stuff like that, like to have to like kind of consider it and bring it along if needed and stuff like that. But you know, a small price to pay, I guess, to feel as normal as possible.
Yeah, I agree with that because just a year and a half ago I switched to injectable testosterone because it was so unpredictable knowing how much my body was actually absorbing from the cream, and I was just noticing as I was getting older that I was feeling more of the lethargy and different type of things that I knew were related to like perimenopause, just the aging
Mm,
process. And so yeah, same thing. It's like, okay, well, we're going to be gone for 10 days. I need to pack 2 syringes with my testosterone.
right.
Make sure that's there. So, yeah, I get that. But I was nervous, and I'm not even a nurse. I was like totally freaked out,
Yeah,
which I bet a lot of women are like, "Oh my gosh, I have to inject into my love handles or my glute or whatever." So,
right.
do you do your injections in the love handles, glutes, or thighs? Where do you tend to?
So mine goes into the muscle, and so I either do either deltoid or the top of my glute.
Yeah.
So, um, honestly, I feel better about doing it here just because I know it's like getting into the muscle, right? But I'll do the top of the glutes sometimes too. So just kind of rotate around. I'm doing like one injection every 5 days now because when I was doing it a bigger dose weekly, it felt like it was too much almost initially, and then it would like taper off, and then you'd have those last few days where like you didn't feel as good. So it was like now we're doing smaller, a little more frequently. Was doing every 4 days, and then now I'm doing every five because my levels were like kind of creeping up a little bit last lab draw. So it was like, because that's the thing, people are like, too much of something isn't good either. Like there's a
Hmm.
very fine line here. Like we're not trying to be like overdosed because that people don't understand. Like you don't feel good when you're getting too much of this stuff. It's I know people who had crazy high levels and they are like never again. They're like traumatized, you know. So
Yeah, especially with testosterone because it's androgenic. And so we don't need as much as men. And you will notice if your dosing is off, like your throat might start to get scratchy. You know, I've heard women like, darker hair on starting to grow on their face, different things like that. So there are major side effects that happen pretty quickly. And so you got to watch the dosing, but also like minimum effective dose. And I have this
yeah.
story of a client of mine who just started testosterone, and I can't remember what she said her dosing was, but she said, I did a dose my first injection, it was like 2 weeks ago. So she's like, I did it, and my weight shot up 3 pounds overnight. And I felt like, she said, I felt really like kind of, she's like on edge. And so
Yeah.
I was like, take a picture of your prescription. I want to see. And so I was like, where, like, show me where you pulled, like how much you pulled to on your syringe. And she had misread it. And
Oh
she pulled
no.
5 times more the dose than what she was supposed to have. And so, yeah, be careful. She's like, oh my gosh, I didn't see the point 0.5 and I pulled to the 5.
My God.
I
That's
know. And
fine.
so luckily that was like her first, and then she said I didn't even do it this week because I didn't like it. And I was like, well, now you know. So I'm like, make sure to always read the prescription
I
dosing.
still look at the thing like every time just because like menopause or premenopause brain fog. I'm like every time I look at the label and just double check because I'm like, okay, yep, same dose. And because
Yeah.
yeah, that's a little bit goes a long way. And yeah, thankfully the only thing I've really noticed is my face and my hair get more oily
Mhm.
now. I have like an oily face anyway, so that's not like new, like out of nowhere, but now it's just like seems to be more oily. Um, Other than that, you know, maybe I have some extra, like a little bit more like hair on my body, but not like any like man hair or whatever, like a different consistency or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the only thing I don't really notice, so there was at a time a couple years ago where my when I was on the cream, she was like, "Well, let's have you do the cream morning and night." And so I started noticing side effects after a couple weeks of doing that, which I was like, okay, if we need to bring up my dose, I don't want to be doing stuff with the cream like that. I want to do the injectable because I will know to a T how much
Yeah.
I'm getting in. But yeah, other than that, like weight gain. Like you do notice a little
Oh,
bit of
yeah. I had the water weight like immediately too, which I know really throws people through a loop. But I honestly, I did so many side by sides of myself. It was like you couldn't even tell the
no.
difference. And I shot up like 6 pounds. Couldn't tell the difference. I thought I actually looked better. It's almost like the weight goes on the right spots and stuff. I didn't have it like anywhere in my like abdomen area or whatever. So um, that kind of as I got, and that was more from the pellet, I think, because it was hot, like an initial. But since being on the injections, the smaller ones, I'm just like maybe up like 4 pounds. Like it's never gone away. But like who know at this point, who knows what that is? That could just be fat gain from over the last couple of years too. So,
Yeah,
but my
my
weight's been pretty steady for the last couple of years now.
yeah, and yeah, I've noticed a little bit of that initial weight gain, and it's never really come off either. I figure it's mostly like intramuscular, like
Yeah,
weight to the muscles, with
water.
that. And you're right, a lot of women that can get in their head of like, oh my gosh, the scale, and it's like, well, no, it's not I don't really it's not body fat, especially when it happens
Right.
quickly. It's a side
Yeah.
effect introducing the testosterone. So yeah, it's always fun to talk about that stuff because I feel like a lot of women do kind of get in their heads about it. It can feel like there is a stigma around testosterone and the things with that. But as with anything that you're doing, like you do want to exercise caution, and that's why it's important to double check your labs and be on top of things with your practitioner and to make sure that you're getting however much you need because as you mentioned at the beginning, it really is a moving target. You're adjusting based on feedback in labs. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
And
another thing I want to say about that too, is that yes, it made me feel significantly better, but it also didn't like give me superhuman powers in the gym. Like, I think a lot of people still on social media, especially, just want to like slam women for taking this and like oh, this is why you look like her. And that's why whenever I talk about it, I always try and show like a before picture to be like, okay, this is where I was at here. It's very obvious I had a lot of muscle then, probably the same amount at this point. I mean, we're not putting on much muscle at this point. I am not after training for this long,
yep.
and where I'm at right now. So, yeah, nothing, there was no significant muscle gains. I wasn't all like making a PR on everything in the gym. It was just like I felt like I had kind of returned to what I was able to do before. And now a couple years later, I've definitely seen a decline in a lot of the things I can do. And it's like, is that aging? Is that, still perimenopause? I'm also dealing with the shoulder situation. So I
That's the
have just like a lot going on. But yeah, like my numbers are not going up in the gym, and that is not responsible for the way I look today for sure.
yeah.
That
And this is Yeah, I'm the same. And I also, this is my opinion, but I don't think that any person should, like any woman should go on testosterone with this idea of like gaining a bunch of muscle and becoming like this super human strength. Like
Yeah,
using it for HRT is what I mean. We just need enough. We need enough, whatever that is. It's a little
right.
bit different for everybody, just depending on our needs and our deficits, things like that. So whatever that enough is. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Too much does not feel good either. So it's a very fine minimum effective dose.
Yeah, there was a couple years ago when I had told my general practitioner when I was on the cream, and he said, "Oh, like that's not good." He was still prescribing to the old school of thought when it came to hormone replacement therapy, even for men, because he had said the same thing to my husband, and so men and women. He was just like, just naturally as you age, your hormones decline, and for me, like I get that, and if we look to our parents and our grandparents, like that's what they did. Like they weren't, I don't believe that perimenopause, like that discussion around that phrase was a thing 30 years ago, 40 years ago,
Right.
50 years ago. But we are in this day and age where we have that opportunity. We have the research to back this information where sure, yes, we are aging and it's natural for our hormones to decline, but at the same time, this is this opportunity, and we get to make that choice whether or not we just want to deal with the fallout of the natural
Yeah,
decline of our hormones,
absolutely.
or
Yeah.
if we want to optimize. And so he's now actually apparently, as of this last appointment that my husband had with him, he's talking about HRT for his clients and things like that. And I do believe that it's probably because of the removal of that black box warning.
Yeah,
And
that's good.
so, yeah, but it took him a while. He was like, oh, like you're going to have to, your hematocrit's going to get too high. You're going to be more prone to heart attacks. And I was like, well, I run my labs and things they're good.
Right, right. That's
Yeah.
why, yeah. Thankfully, yeah, my practitioner has been super like cool about everything and like just, she's not ever trying to fear monger with anything and um keeping an eye on stuff and just monitoring my symptoms and how I feel and stuff and that's how we start off. Every time she has labs for me, she wants me to be completely honest about how before I hear what the lab, before I hear what the lab work is, so that there's no like, let me hear the symptoms and we're not just looking at the labs too. I think that's also just like a huge um kind of misconception with women that like just because your labs are normal on paper, that doesn't mean that you still may not qualify for something if you are feeling that poorly.
Yes. And even with my testosterone levels, when I run my blood work, what I've found over the last couple years is I will do my testosterone injection 2 days before I run my labs because I want to see what it looks like, not right after, because
Yeah.
it does vary. Going back to your point about a smaller dose a little bit more frequently, like I do the same thing because I experience those like rise and fall levels more
Mhm.
more extreme than I would prefer to feel. And and so just looking, just looking at that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so different for everyone. I feel like everybody I talk to is like on a different protocol, which makes sense. We're all different. We're all individuals.
Yeah, rightfully so. And so with my lab work, it's my testosterone looks like it's low, like compared to what is more optimal. It's like on the low end of things, but
Mhm.
that's all that I need. Like
Right.
that for me.
That's
And
where
then
you feel good. I know. Because,
yeah,
like
and
I said, there's been times where I've been high, and that is not a great place to be either, with the rage, and you'll almost have more trouble and just kind of feel that wired feeling. I'll feel like I almost feel like I'm on a diuretic or something where I'm having to go to the bathroom a lot. Like it's almost like it produces a lot of water retention and then you're trying to get rid of it. And
interesting. Yeah.
it's like, yeah, no, I don't want to live like that either. So um, I prefer my levels to be, on the lower side too, not like super high.
Yeah, and then I've got one client specifically. Her free test is, her total test is 110, whatever the nanograms per whatever, and then mine's usually down like 40, 45, and
Mhm.
that's where she operates great, and I operate down in the lower levels. So it's not that, I mean, for her, that could seem extreme for a lot of people, and
Yeah,
a doctor might freak out, but everything else looks good. She feels good at that. So it's just that's been really fascinating for me to just see and hear about other women and clients and stuff like that and where they feel best. It's,
right.
so um getting to the next, so progesterone and estrogen. So on testosterone, well, going back to your story, on testosterone for a couple years, and then you started to notice sleep being the biggest thing, like you
Yeah.
not sleeping well, waking up during the night. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, all of my life, I never had any major issues falling asleep. It was like my head would hit the pillow and I would be out. Um, I still would very frequently wake up like just once to go to the bathroom, but I could come back and go right back to sleep. And then, starting because I started this, I guess, this summer, maybe this past summer, it just was becoming so obvious that like I was needing more and more intervention just to like get a normal night's sleep, like taking melatonin and sometimes having to take like a Unisom or something like if I was really struggling and I was like, this is this is not normal. Like we need to figure this out. I mean, I knew about progesterone and I was like, I think this is like telling me it's time to start this. So that's what we started out with. And so I'm just taking the 100 milligram pill before bed. And it's definitely helped. I still have a little bit of trouble getting to sleep like I'd prefer to fall asleep a lot quicker. Uh, but again, I'm having this shoulder issue. I'm sleeping on my back now. Like I feel like there's some factors that are kind of inhibiting me having this great sleep right now. And then I feel like there's still some things in my control that I probably could do better with my work life balance. Like I tend to work a lot in the evenings and you know, unfortunately a lot of that's not in my control, but it's like if I could wind down a little bit better, maybe I would fall asleep quicker. So it's not a huge problem. It's not like I'm sitting there for hours or whatever. But like when you go from literally like hitting the pillow and falling asleep in like what felt like 5 seconds to now it being like 15 to 20 minutes, it kind of feels like an eternity sometimes.
Mhm.
So, but that has definitely helped me sleep sounder. And then I was on that for um, I don't know, maybe 3 months, and I was still having the problem of the waking up early, but not, and then it would just kind of be touch and go. Could you fall back asleep? Could you not? That like that 3 to 5 in the morning wake up that like I am not an early riser. Like some people wake up at 5 a.m. every day. I wake up at like 7:30. So
Same.
so it wasn't going to fly for me to wake up at like 5 in the morning every day. Because like I said, I do work like later in the evening and have a little bit later of a bedtime with my kids, like being teenagers now. So anyway, um, I, that's when we introduced the estrogen. So, along this time period, my periods have become much more irregular too. So it's hard to pinpoint, like, is this that, because sometimes the HRT can do that a little bit too, like the adding of the progesterone. Um, is it that, or is this like my body, like we're kind of, this is the signs the period is like becoming more and not happening as much. So, to me, that just kind of felt alarming. Like, okay, I feel like maybe this is more reason that I need to get started on this medication because, looking at research, I feel like they're seeing best results from, as far as like the heart and the bone benefits, that women should be starting on these things earlier than waiting thing to just completely go to zero before we're getting on replacement. So, that was kind of at the back of my mind too. Like, this isn't just about like feeling good right now, although it is, but I'm also like looking for those long term bone and heart and brain benefits too. So I didn't want to, don't want to like deprive myself of something that I could right now. So, um, when I first started, we started on the lowest dose of the estrogen patch. And I had it on for like 36 hours and it was not for me. I had like an immediate migraine and, you know, I thought that meant like, I can't take this and, it was too much or whatever. I don't know, but just learning more, like all women absorb things differently and you may need a different modality, like just because it works for somebody else doesn't mean it's going to work for you. um I was terrified to try it again, but like the sleep, the waking up and then not being able to fall back asleep and like just then you're getting these nights where you're getting 5 to 6 hours of sleep. I was like, I can't do that. So we tried the estrogen cream, compounded cream I do now, and it was the lowest dose to start. And it was like immediately using that, I was like sleeping through the night, like sound as a rock, and like almost like where I have a hard time waking up. Like I was like almost feeling
Not
like,
good.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, so it was like, okay, this is clearly helping me. Like
Mhm.
it was that and so many other things that like I wasn't even thinking about helping me. Like, I mean, I knew it would help with my mood and stuff, but like I felt like it's really helped with the anxiety. Um and then like I feel like my bowels are just like much more normal on it, like just not having any like loose stools or like I feel like, and a lot of that I feel like for me is related to anxiety, like my stomach will get messed up because I'm anxious.
Yeah.
um and so it has helped significantly with that. I had a severe problem with motion sickness that I don't want to say, knock on wood, has gone away, but like I just do not have near the issues with motion sickness anymore. So like what I'm doing like in my brain or like my in my ears or something is helping. Um I do feel like although it hasn't helped my shoulder, that's a totally different issue. I just feel like I'm not as achy, like when you wake up and you're like all stiff and achy. Because there was a day or 2 days for some reason, I like totally for it was when it was more new and I wasn't used to using it. I didn't use it for like 2 days, and I was in like the worst pain after not having it on my body. And so it took like a couple days to catch up. So I was like, oh, it definitely does like help joint pain or whatever. So
Yeah, all these incredible unintended side effects because you were just like, okay, I need sleep so I can function, but all these other things that it's these downstream effects from
right.
that
It's like, you know, I haven't dove heavy into the research on everything, but it's like, is this stuff happening on its own, or is it all from finally being able to sleep appropriately like a normal person? You know what I mean? Because I just believe in sleep so much for anybody, regardless of of anything. Like it is like the cure all to almost uh every problem, and like the ultimate stress relief, that when you can fix that for somebody, it just, the trickle down effect of all of the things it helps is crazy. And most of us don't even like realize how sleep deprived we really are. You just get so used to like it being normalized, to sleep like crap, or, as a mom, you're on the back burner with sleep constantly.
yeah, it's so true. I keep thinking about when my kids were little and none of them were good sleepers when they were
Yeah.
the toddler age and stuff. And then when that finally happened that I could sleep again, and it was night and day difference and I felt so much better. But the last year I am naturally waking up earlier and I don't like that. And I'm like, okay, this is probably like the natural, like just aging and how it does happen to people as they get older. I notice they don't sleep as much as they used.
Hmm.
So as you're talking, I'm like, ooh, estrogen. Maybe I do need to look in that. My estrogen has always been low, and I just started on an estrogen troche, and so it's like a vaginal troche that's mixed with
Yeah.
coconut oil. And mostly due to like this is going TMI for everybody, but sex has been painful lately.
Hmm.
And so incorporating that to help with like vaginal, like uterine health and things like
Yeah.
that. And my practitioner did say that that will give me some systemic benefits of estrogen to hopefully elevate those levels a little bit more. But so yeah, so far so good. I mean, it's only been a
Yeah.
week, so we'll kind of see how that goes. But
Yeah. Have to
so
see
maybe
how that goes, because that was the other thing, is that people frequently ask me like, well, what were your labs? It was like my labs were never abnormal with the estrogen and the progesterone, but my symptoms were a mess. So it was like, if you're having a provider who's like telling you you can't like be on these things because your labs, it's like your labs are changing every day as a female. Like they're going to be all over the place. So like one day you could be totally normal, and then, the next week it could be in the toilet. So it's like labs is not the best way to determine if you need something. It's like if you're struggling and having the symptoms, try it and see how it does. And like I was just blown away. Like I said, I didn't notice a huge, like the progesterone was not like, mind blowing, but like the testosterone was obvious difference. And then the estrogen was like, okay, this was definitely like the missing piece with the sleep. So, um, I definitely won't be getting off of that.
yeah, staying on that. And like you said, this is preventative as well. Like you're here in the perimenopause, so it's not that labs are reflecting horrible things, but just knowing what you've studied already, advocating for yourself, looking into that, you're noticing these symptoms, but also protecting your like future Shannon, like up from.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I worry about like I had heart disease in my grandfather, so like I just, you're always just kind of wondering like, what sure like this, none of this like comes back on me in some way, like making sure I'm living my best life. So, and then of course protecting my bones, like these are things that I like fear and care more about now at this age than I do about like, of course I love to like look good and look fit, but it's like that is more at the center of my brain now versus like what I actually look like. Like I'm just trying my longest life and be around for my kids and stuff.
Yeah, doing all these things for long-term health and longevity so that, yeah, we can be as healthy as we possibly can be into our older age and not fall
Right.
and break our hip and end up in hospice and pass away,
Yeah.
which, you hear those stories of, it's like, oh, if someone's grandparent fell and break their hip, they're usually, that's kind of the beginning of the end. And
Yeah.
I don't want that to be my story. So
Right.
yeah, it's the same.
Yeah.
And so as you were talking about two things to close up here before we finish, and this has been such a good discussion, just open
Hmm.
discussion. So thank you so much for sharing everything.
Yeah.
So fun. But the first thing I want to hit on and in closing is trial and error. I think a lot of people think that because they heard somebody else do something, or maybe even perhaps they got a dosing from a friend or something, like you might try something and it might not be it. So you've got to like be in, if you want to work for optimization and also to help improve your symptoms, you've got to be okay with this whole trial and error, figuring out what works best for you.
Right. And that, yeah, like, I mean, that was the case for me with the estrogen patch, was a terrible experience and had me to try it again, but I was encouraged by so many women, and I'm thankful to my community for sharing their experience and educating me. And, sometimes I know people don't like to have unsolicited advice, but in this case, I like to hear people's experiences. And I've, bonded with so many people and felt like we were, experiencing the same things. And then it helped me to get another chance with a different method. And that turned out to be what worked and what, has given me this amazing sleep now that I'm like, how, still even to this day, I'm like, how am I sleeping like this? So, I'm forever thankful for it.
Yeah, the community is huge, and breaking that stigma again so that we can have these open conversations about our own symptoms, what people have tried, what they're experiencing, whether it was a good or a positive experience, and sharing that with other women, because there's a lot of things that I think that we can learn from each other, and it doesn't have to be something that we have to try to do in the dark. So it's so true. Community is huge.
Mhm.
And then so last thing, Shannon, last little question here before we close up is I want to highlight on just your whole experience, and if as women entering into the perimenopausal age, what would be the thing that you would recommend they do if they start to notice any sort of like change in their sleep patterns or habits? Like what would be the first thing that they should do if they feel their body's breaking down? Maybe we could say that.
Yeah. So first, I just think you really need to check in with your habits and make sure that you are doing all the things that you can control to your best at home first. So, putting in good sleep hygiene and all of the nutrition, moving your body as much as you can, eliminating alcohol, all of those things. If that if you honestly feel like you are doing everything you can and you are still feeling poorly, that's when I feel like you need to go and talk to your healthcare provider. And, you know, I know some of these, like I said, some of these GPs will help you. Some of them are going to refer you out. But having a conversation, but they should be able to at least do the baseline lab work, which I think to just make sure there's no major issue going on, like with iron or thyroid or your hemoglobin levels or whatever. Like rule all that stuff out first, and then everything, all of that's coming back normal. Then it's like, okay, maybe this is hormone related, and do my symptoms are matching up with this, and kind of proceeding that route. Um, I see somebody locally. I wish there was know, somebody I knew or a trusted site that people who don't have that option can go reach out to. I don't know if you know of anybody, but um yeah, I think at least now I think it has become way more accessible and more talked about, and the doctors are the ones who were maybe a little resistant in the past are definitely more open to the conversation and understanding things now. Hopeful.
Yes, I agree with you, and I am fortunate that my local practitioner that I see, she actually takes insurance, which is pretty unheard of when
Oh,
it comes
wow.
to
Yeah.
HRT. So I'm very fortunate that I get that, but I also utilize and refer a bunch of people to Hormone Logics, and they are based out of Florida. And so I've been working with Hormone Logics as well. So I have like two people that I work with to help me in making sure I'm optimizing in the way that I want to. And so if anybody's interested and you guys want to learn more about Hormone Logics, I can share that with you. But they're based out of Florida. They are cash pay only, which is,
Yeah.
that's the way most practitioners are, but they
Pretty
can,
normal.
yeah, they can see you across the country. So that is one company I have firsthand experience with, and a lot of clients who work with them through this
Well, that's
perimenopause.
good to know for me too when people ask me. So,
Yeah, they're a great team of people and doctors and everything over there. Yeah.
mhm.
Well, this was so much fun. Thank
Yeah,
you so much for
of
taking the
course.
time to share your experiences. And um, if you guys like, if you are not following Shannon, where can people find you?
So all of my social media is the gym nurse, and I'm on. I have YouTube, but I haven't really dove into this type of content yet. But um, that's a goal for 2026.
Yeah.
Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all the things under the gym nurse. So
There we have it. And I will put a little thing here, the gym nurse, in here as well. All right. Well, thank you so much. We'll see
thank
you
you for
in the
having
next
me.
one. Yeah, thank you.